The morning Marcus Reeves threw his wife of 9 years out of their penthouse apartment to marry his mistress, he had no idea that Rebecca Sinclair Reeves was the secret billionaire who owned Apex Global Industries, the very company where he'd just been promoted to senior vice president, the corporation he'd spent 6 years climbing through, the empire he believed he was conquering through his own brilliance. Rebecca stood in the marble foyer of the home she'd secretly purchased with dividends from the company her grandfather founded, watching her husband load suitcases into a car while his mistress, Vanessa Torres, Apex's director of marketing, waited in the passenger seat, and she felt something cold and calculated settle in her chest. He was leaving her for a woman who reported to executives that reported to Rebecca's shell companies, abandoning their marriage to be with someone he thought was his equal in corporate power, never suspecting that his wife controlled every salary, every promotion, every decision that had shaped his career. But what would happen when the man who called her a basic housewife with no ambition discovered that the woman he'd discarded for having no prospects was the ghost in the machine, the invisible hand that had been pulling every string of his professional life? How would Marcus react when the wife he'd kicked out for being dead weight revealed that she owned the building where he lived, the company where he worked, and quite literally the ground beneath his feet? And what would Rebecca do to the husband who'd betrayed her trust, now that she finally had permission to stop hiding her power and use every weapon in her arsenal to show him exactly what it meant to discard a billionaire? Rebecca had perfected the art of invisibility over 9 years of marriage. She attended corporate functions as Marcus's wife, smiled politely while colleagues patronized her about keeping busy at home, and never corrected anyone who assumed she was unemployed. The truth was far more complex. Her grandfather, William Sinclair, had founded Apex Global Industries in 1962, building it into a multinational conglomerate worth $47 billion. When he died 7 years ago, he left everything to Rebecca, his only grandchild, with one condition: that she maintain her anonymity, operating through a web of LLCs and offshore trusts, learning who people truly were when they didn't know she held power over them. "It's a test," her grandfather had said during their final conversation, his hand frail in hers. "Power reveals character, Becca, but hidden power reveals truth. Let them think you're ordinary. Watch who treats you with respect anyway, who loves you without agenda. That's how you'll know who deserves to be in your life when you finally step into the light." She'd maintained the facade perfectly, even from Marcus. They'd met at a charity gala when she was 24, fresh from Harvard Business School, secretly managing her inheritance while pretending to be a graduate student with family money. Marcus had been 28, ambitious and charming, a middle manager at a competing firm with dreams of executive leadership. He'd been attentive, romantic, seemingly unconcerned with her lack of career. They'd married within 18 months, and Rebecca had loved him genuinely, believing she'd found someone who valued her for herself. What Marcus didn't know was that Rebecca had orchestrated his hiring at Apex Global 2 months after their wedding. She'd reviewed his resume personally, approved his initial salary, and watched from the shadows as he excelled in his role. She told herself she was giving him opportunity, not manipulating his life. But the truth was more complicated. She'd wanted him to succeed, wanted to believe their marriage was built on more than her hidden wealth. So she'd given him the platform and watched him climb, intervening only occasionally through her proxies, a strategic promotion here, a key project there, always careful to make it look like his own merit. For 6 years it had worked. Marcus thrived at Apex, rising from project manager to director to VP of operations. He came home energized, talking about his strategies and victories, and Rebecca listened with genuine pride, never hinting that she'd read the same reports through encrypted channels, that she'd attended board meetings via video under her corporate alias, or Sinclair, that every major decision he celebrated had crossed her desk for final approval. But something had changed 18 months ago. Marcus's success had bred arrogance, his ambition curdling into entitlement. He'd started making comments about Rebecca's lack of career, questioning what she did all day, suggesting she was wasting her potential by not working. The irony was suffocating. She spent 40 hours per week managing a corporate empire, attending virtual board meetings from their second bedroom, while he thought she was doing yoga or shopping. Maybe you should get a job, he'd said one night over dinner, his tone casual but cutting. Even part-time, just something to give you purpose. I mean, we don't need the money, obviously, but it's about ambition, you know? Drive. She'd bitten her tongue, reminding herself of her grandfather's test, telling herself Marcus would eventually see her value. But the comments escalated. He began describing her to friends as not career-oriented, dismissing her opinions on business matters, excluding her from networking events because she wouldn't understand the conversations. The man who'd once loved her unconditionally now seemed embarrassed by her existence. The real crisis began 3 months ago when Marcus was promoted to senior vice president, a decision Rebecca had actually opposed in the board meeting, but been outvoted by other executives who found his performance exemplary. His new role came with a corner office, a substantial raise to $850,000 annually, and frequent interaction with Vanessa Torres, a stunning 32-year-old marketing director known for her aggressive networking and designer wardrobe. Rebecca first noticed the affair 6 weeks ago. Marcus's late nights increased. His phone became password protected. His attention toward her evaporated entirely. She'd hired a private investigator. Easy to do when you controlled unlimited resources. And the photos had been devastating. Marcus and Vanessa at luxury hotels, intimate dinners, weekend trips he'd claimed were business conferences. The investigator's report noted that Vanessa believed Marcus was being groomed for CEO, that she'd told friends she was dating a future billionaire, that their affair was partly romantic but significantly transactional. Rebecca had sat in her private office, a secret space in a downtown building Marcus didn't know she owned, staring at the evidence of his betrayal, her heart breaking beneath the weight of disillusionment. She'd given him everything while hiding who she was, and he'd repaid her by falling for a woman who only wanted him for power he didn't actually possess. The irony would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. She debated confronting him, or simply filing for divorce through attorneys and disappearing. But then came the morning that changed everything, the morning Marcus decided he was done hiding. Rebecca was making coffee when Marcus emerged from their bedroom with 2 suitcases, his expression cold and resolved. Vanessa's Porsche was visible through the window, parked illegally in front of their building, the woman herself leaning against it like she owned the world. "I'm leaving," Marcus announced without preamble. "I filed divorce papers. You'll be served this afternoon. I need you out of this apartment by the end of the week." Rebecca's hand stilled on the coffee pot. "Marcus, what are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb, Rebecca. We both know this marriage has been dead for years. You're not my equal. You've never been my equal. I need a partner who matches my ambition, someone who operates at my level. Vanessa understands my world in ways you never could." The casual cruelty stole her breath. "Your world? Marcus, we've been married 9 years. I've supported every step of your career." "Supported?" He laughed bitterly. "You mean you've been a passenger? You contribute nothing, Rebecca. No income, no career, no drive. You're dead weight, and I'm done carrying you. Vanessa and I are moving forward. She's being promoted to VP of Strategic Marketing next week, and we're going to build an empire together. You? You can go back to whatever it is you actually do all day." Rebecca felt tears threaten, but forced them back. "So you're kicking me out? Of our home?" "It's my home," he corrected. "My income pays the rent. My career made this lifestyle possible. You're welcome to take your personal items, but everything else stays. My attorney will send you a settlement offer. Don't expect much. You'll get whatever the prenup allows, which frankly is more generosity than you deserve." He'd forgotten, apparently, that Rebecca's family attorney had drafted that prenup, that its language contained protections Marcus's cheaper lawyer hadn't fully understood. But she said nothing, just watched him load his bags while Vanessa smirked from the car below. "I hope you'll be very happy," Rebecca said quietly, her voice steady despite the earthquake inside her chest. Marcus paused at the door, something almost like pity crossing his face. "I don't expect you to understand, Rebecca. You've never had ambition, never understood what it takes to succeed. But someday you'll realize I did you a favor. Maybe now you'll finally get a real job. Make something of yourself instead of coasting on that family trust fund you've been living off. The family trust fund that controlled $47 billion, the trust fund that paid his salary, but she didn't correct him. Not yet. After he left, Rebecca sat in the empty penthouse, her penthouse purchased through an LLC that Marcus had never bothered to investigate, and made a decision. Her grandfather's test was over. Marcus had shown her exactly who he was when he thought she had no power. A man who valued her so little, he could discard her for a mistress and a promotion. Now it was time to show him who she actually was. She called her attorney first, then her CFO, then the chairman of Apex Global's board, a position she'd held anonymously for 3 years, casting votes through proxies and encrypted communications. By sunset, the machinery was in motion, and Rebecca felt no guilt. She'd given Marcus every chance to value her for herself. He'd chosen poorly. Marcus celebrated his freedom with Vanessa at an exclusive restaurant, toasting their future over $400 bottles of wine. Vanessa was radiant, her hand possessive on his arm, already planning their engagement and talking about the mansion they'd buy once his divorce was finalized. "You're going to be CEO within 5 years," she predicted confidently. "I can feel it. The board loves you, Marcus. They see your potential, and with me handling strategic marketing, we'll be unstoppable. The power couple of Apex Global." Marcus smiled, believing her completely. He'd worked hard for his position, had earned every promotion through talent and determination. Rebecca had been holding him back with her mundane existence, but now he was free to soar. Vanessa understood ambition, understood power, understood him in ways his pedestrian ex-wife never could. His phone buzzed with an email notification. Urgent, all hands meeting. Tomorrow 9 a.m., executive conference room, attendance mandatory. He frowned slightly but dismissed it, probably announcing some restructuring or new strategic initiative. Good, he wanted to be visible during important company moments, wanted the board to remember his face when succession planning began. What he didn't know was that Rebecca had scheduled the meeting personally, that every executive in the building was about to learn the truth, and that his entire world was approximately 16 hours from complete annihilation. The executive conference room at Apex Global was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a table carved from a single piece of mahogany, leather chairs that cost more than most cars. Marcus arrived early, wanting to project eagerness and engagement. Vanessa had texted him good luck, adding that she'd heard rumors the CEO was stepping down, that this might be a leadership transition announcement. The room filled gradually. Senior VPs from every division, the CFO, the general counsel, several board members Marcus recognized from company materials. The energy felt strange, anticipatory but tense, like everyone knew something he didn't. He smiled confidently, nodding at colleagues, pretending he belonged in rooms like this permanently. At 9:11 a.m. exactly, the door opened and a woman walked in that made Marcus's heart stop. Rebecca. But not the Rebecca he knew, not the casual housewife in yoga pants and minimal makeup. This Rebecca wore a charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably cost $8,000, her hairstyle perfectly, diamond studs glittering in her ears, carrying herself with an authority that filled the room like electricity. She looked powerful, sophisticated, every inch the executive he'd accused her of never being. Confusion rippled through him. What was Rebecca doing here? Had she gotten a job at Apex somehow? Was this some kind of embarrassing coincidence? Rebecca took the seat at the head of the table, the CEO's chair, and smiled at the assembled executives with cool professionalism. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," she began, her voice clear and commanding. "I know many of you have questions, so let me address them directly. My name is Rebecca Sinclair Reeves, though most of you know me as R. Sinclair from Board Communications, or simply as the anonymous majority shareholder referenced in company documentation." Marcus felt ice water flood his veins. No, this wasn't possible. For 7 years, Rebecca continued, her eyes sweeping the room but carefully avoiding Marcus. "I've managed this company remotely, attending board meetings via secure video, making strategic decisions through proxies, maintaining my privacy as was my grandfather's wish. William Sinclair founded Apex Global, And when he passed, he left me controlling interest. 67% of all shares, valued currently at approximately $31.5 billion. I've remained anonymous to observe how the company operated without the influence of visible ownership, to let merit determine success rather than politics. The room was silent except for Marcus's ragged breathing. Executives exchanged glances. Some looked shocked, others nodded as if pieces were clicking into place. Vanessa's boss, the CMO, looked pale, suddenly understanding how much he hadn't known. However, Rebecca's voice hardened, recent events have made it clear that anonymity has allowed certain behaviors to flourish that I can no longer tolerate. It's time for transparency, accountability, and significant changes in leadership. Her eyes finally found Marcus, and the look she gave him was surgical in its precision. Marcus Reeves, Senior Vice President of Operations. Your performance reviews over 6 years have been largely positive, which is why I approved most of your promotions. However, I've recently reviewed your expense reports more carefully and found some concerning patterns. Tell me, do you remember the business conference in Miami 3 weeks ago? The one that cost the company $15,000 in hotel and travel expenses? Marcus couldn't speak. His throat had closed entirely. Because according to the private investigator I hired, Rebecca continued, pulling out a folder, you weren't at a conference. You were at the Fontainebleau with Vanessa Torres, using company funds to finance an extramarital affair. That's fraud, Marcus. Corporate theft. And it's grounds for immediate termination and potential criminal charges. Vanessa, sitting 3 chairs away, looked like she might vomit. The CMO had his head in his hands. But let's talk about the more interesting situation, Rebecca said, her voice dropping to something deadly quiet. The penthouse apartment you just kicked me out of? I own that building, Marcus. I bought it through Sinclair Property Holdings 4 years ago. The rent you thought you were paying was actually going into a managed account I set up to maintain your illusion of independence. You're not on the lease. I am. You're not the tenant of record. I am. You never paid a single dollar toward our home. You just thought you did. Marcus finally found his voice, though it came out strangled. Rebecca, you can't, this isn't what? She asked coldly. Fair? Legal? Appropriate? Let me be very clear about the situation you're in. You used company resources to conduct an affair. You committed fraud on expense reports. You attempted to evict the legal owner of a property from her own home. And perhaps most significantly, you systematically betrayed, demeaned, and abandoned your wife while benefiting from her resources in ways you were too arrogant to even notice. She stood, her presence dominating the room. Effective immediately, you're terminated from Apex Global Industries. Security will escort you from the building. Your final paycheck will reflect deductions for the fraudulent expenses. The signing bonus you received for the SVP promotion, $200,000, is also forfeit per the terms you clearly didn't read carefully. Human resources will pursue recovery of those funds. Additionally, she continued, ignoring his strangled protests, the penthouse lease is terminated as of today. You have 24 hours to remove your personal belongings before I change the locks. The car you've been driving, the Mercedes you think you own, that's a company car issued to senior VPs. You'll surrender it to security along with your access cards and laptop. Marcus tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't support him. This couldn't be happening. This was a nightmare, a surreal mistake. Rebecca, please, we can talk about this privately. We're divorced, Marcus, she said flatly, or we will be once my attorneys finish. And believe me, you'll be lucky to leave the marriage with anything more than the clothes on your back. The prenup you didn't bother reading carefully? It has an infidelity clause, a fraud clause, a liquidated damages provision for emotional distress caused by affairs. My attorneys estimate your total liability at around $3.4 million, which we'll pursue through civil court after the company finishes its criminal referral for the expense fraud. She turned to Vanessa, who'd been shrinking in her chair. Ms. Torres, you're also terminated, effective immediately. Your involvement in the expense fraud makes you complicit, and your judgment in conducting an affair with a married superior shows staggering lack of professionalism. You'll also be surrendering your company car, your access, and any equity compensation that hasn't vested. Vanessa burst into tears, her calculated composure shattering. I didn't know he was married. He said he was divorced, that it was finalized, that he was lying, Rebecca said simply, which you might have discovered if you'd bothered to look. But you were too focused on what you thought was his power, his trajectory, his future. Neither of you ever suspected that the real power was at home, wearing yoga pants, watching you both destroy yourselves through your own arrogance. Security appeared at the door. Rebecca nodded to them, then gathered her materials. Gentlemen, please escort Mr. Reeves and Ms. Torres from the premises. HR will handle the rest of the termination paperwork. As two security officers approached, Marcus found his voice one more time, desperate and breaking. Rebecca, please, I'm sorry, I made a terrible mistake. Don't do this. I love you. We can fix this. She looked at him with something like pity, but her eyes were steel. You love what you thought I was, Marcus. Powerless, dependent, beneath you. You loved having someone to condescend to, someone who made you feel superior. But the real me, the woman with the intelligence, resources, and capability to build empires, you never even looked for her. You were too busy looking down to ever look at who I actually was. Where will I go? He whispered, the reality finally hitting him. The apartment, the car, my job. Rebecca, I'll have nothing. I'll be homeless. Then I suggest you figure it out quickly, she said without emotion. You called me dead weight with no prospects. Let's see how you do with actual dead weight and no prospects. Maybe you'll learn something valuable, though I doubt it. She walked out while security escorted Marcus and Vanessa away, leaving the remaining executives in shocked silence. The CFO was the first to speak, breaking into applause that others hesitantly joined. Rebecca Sinclair Reeves, anonymous billionaire and secret CEO, had just announced herself to the world in the most devastating way possible. The next 6 months were systematic devastation for Marcus Reeves. Rebecca's attorneys pursued him relentlessly. The prenups liquidated damages, the company's fraud claims, the criminal investigation that ultimately resulted in probation but destroyed what remained of his reputation. His face appeared in business publications as a cautionary tale. The executive who betrayed a billionaire wife, the man arrogant enough to kick out the woman who owned everything he thought was his. Vanessa disappeared from the industry entirely. Her career in marketing finished before it truly began. She'd believed she was dating a future CEO, had gambled her own professional reputation on Marcus's projected trajectory, and lost everything when his trajectory became a freefall. Marcus tried to find work, but Rebecca's influence extended throughout the industry. Not through active sabotage, she didn't need to. His termination for fraud and the very public revelation of his betrayal did the work for her. No serious company would hire him. His savings evaporated paying attorneys and trying to fight claims he had no chance of defeating. The prenup's language was airtight, written by lawyers Marcus's cheaper counsel hadn't been equipped to challenge. 4 months after the conference room confrontation, Marcus's mother called Rebecca, begging for mercy. He's living in a motel, Patricia Reeves said, her voice breaking. He's lost everything. Please, Rebecca. Whatever he did, this is too much. He's my son. I'm asking you, woman to woman, mother to someone who might be a mother someday, please show compassion. Rebecca listened silently, then spoke with measured calm. Mrs. Reeves, your son called me dead weight. He said I contributed nothing to his life, that I had no ambition, no value, no worth. He kicked me out of my own home to be with a woman who only wanted him for power he didn't possess. He committed fraud with company funds to finance his affair. And when confronted with his behavior, his first instinct was to lie, deny, and deflect rather than take accountability. I didn't destroy your son, she continued. I simply removed the scaffolding I'd built around him without his knowledge. Every promotion he celebrated, I approved it. Every salary increase, I signed off. The opportunities he thought he'd earned through merit, I created them. I gave him a platform to succeed, and he used that platform to betray, demean, and discard me. His current situation is simply what his life looks like without my invisible support. This is who he actually is, Mrs. Reeves. I just stopped hiding it. But the motel, Patricia whispered. He can't even afford food some days. Then perhaps he'll learn the value of the dead weight he discarded, Rebecca said, not unkindly but without compromise. I built an empire while he thought I was doing yoga. I managed billions while he patronized me about getting a real job. And I maintained enough grace to let him believe in his own abilities until he proved he didn't deserve that grace. I'm not the villain in this story, Mrs. Reeves. I'm just the woman who stopped being invisible. She hung up gently but firmly, returning to the board presentation she'd been preparing. Apex Global was thriving under her visible leadership, stock prices up 34% since her reveal. She donated $50 million to women's business initiatives, become a prominent voice about gender bias in corporate settings, and started mentoring young female executives trying to navigate industries that underestimated them. Rebecca encountered Marcus one final time, 6 months after everything fell apart. She was leaving a charity gala when she saw him standing near the parking structure, his clothing worn, his face gaunt, holding a cardboard sign that read, "Corporate Professional Seeking Opportunity." Her security detail tensed, but she waved them back, approaching him alone. "Marcus," she said quietly. He looked up, and the shame in his eyes was absolute. "Rebecca, I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to see me, to know that I understand now. What I lost, what you were, what I threw away." "Do you?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Do you understand? Or do you just understand that I had money and power you could have accessed?" "Both," he admitted, his voice hollow. "I won't lie. I can't believe I lived with a billionaire and never knew that I had access to everything and destroyed it through my own stupidity. But also, I remember things now, how you listened to my work problems and gave advice that always turned out right, how you understood corporate dynamics better than I did, how you never needed my money but let me believe I was providing. You were smarter than me, more capable than me, and I was too arrogant to see it. I thought I was the prize in our marriage, but you were. You always were." Rebecca nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, Marcus, I did love you. I gave you opportunity and success because I wanted to see you thrive. I hid my identity because I wanted to know you loved me for myself, not my wealth. And for years I believed you did." "I did," he insisted. "I do. Rebecca, if there's any chance—" "There isn't," she said firmly. "You loved who you thought I was, someone beneath you, someone to elevate yourself above. The moment you succeeded, you discarded me. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. You didn't love me, Marcus. You loved feeling superior to me. And when that feeling was threatened by your own success, you found someone new to feel superior to." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "I'm not heartless. This is a check for $50,000 in contact information for 3 employment agencies that work with professionals recovering from career setbacks. It's more than you deserve, but I'm giving it to you anyway because I'm not interested in your complete destruction. Just your understanding that actions have consequences." Marcus took the envelope with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you. Rebecca, thank you. I'm so sorry. For everything. For being too blind, too arrogant, too stupid to see what was right in front of me." "I know you are," she said. "Now you have a choice, Marcus. You can use this money to rebuild your life, learn from your mistakes, become someone better. Or you can resent me, blame me, convince yourself you're the victim. Most people in your position choose resentment. I hope you choose growth." "Not for me. I don't need anything from you. But for yourself, because the man you were, he was small, selfish, and cruel. You can be better than that if you choose to be." She walked to her car, leaving Marcus standing in the parking garage with $50,000 and a chance. She never looked back to see what he did with it. 2 years later, Rebecca married again, a fellow entrepreneur who'd built his own company from nothing, who knew exactly who she was from the beginning and valued her mind as much as her wealth. They were equals in every sense, partners who challenged and supported each other. She'd learned the lesson her grandfather wanted to teach, that hiding power revealed truth, but so did choosing carefully who deserved to see that power. Apex Global continued thriving under her public leadership, and Rebecca became a symbol, the woman who'd been underestimated and emerged undefeatable, the billionaire who'd tested her husband and found him lacking, the executive who'd proved that real power didn't need to announce itself to matter. She never heard from Marcus again. Whether he rebuilt his life or stayed broken was his choice, his consequence, his story. She'd given him opportunity twice, once through invisible support, once through a final gift. And what he did with those chances was no longer her concern. Rebecca's story became legend in business circles, a modern parable about looking beneath the surface, valuing substance over image, and never underestimating the quiet person in the room. But to her, it was simply the truth. That betrayal revealed who people actually were. That sometimes the best revenge was letting people experience life without the support they'd taken for granted. And that real power wasn't about crushing enemies. It was about building something so strong that other people's betrayals couldn't touch it. She'd been discarded as worthless and had proven her worth beyond measure, not for Marcus's benefit or for revenge or even for justice, but for herself and for every woman who'd ever been underestimated, talked over, or dismissed. She'd shown them all what happened when the invisible woman finally stepped into the light, and it was glorious.